Another Sunday of NFL action is in the books, and in this episode, I'll be breaking down some of my top waiver wire pickups here for Week 6 fantasy football. Again, some early pickups. We still have Monday Night Football to go here, but Sunday night action is just wrapped up me recording this episode, and now we'll be diving into my takeaways and players to target for this week. So if you're new around here, smash that like button, subscribe to the SFS channel, and turn the bell on so you're never late for a new piece of content. I'm posting multiple episodes here on YouTube every single day of the week, and we are pushing towards 5K subscribers. So if you want to be a part of that group, part of this community, we'd love to have you here and help you crush your fantasy leagues this season. So with that being said, let's get started. All right, starting off today's episode, I'll be chatting through the running backs that we are going to be targeting for Week 6 fantasy. Kicking it off with Kenneth Walker here, who I view as a potential league-winning asset. This is a very, very critical priority ad here for teams that I think you absolutely have to, once again, prioritize at the top of your waiver wire pickups. He is currently rostered in just 44% of Yahoo Fantasy Leagues, and I believe will be taking over this Seahawks backfield moving forward. Now, Kenneth did rip a big 69-yard touchdown run against the New Orleans Saints defense this past week. He totaled 8 rushes for 88 yards in the day, and being the second running back selected in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Seahawks have confidence in what he can do for this offense. He's a very complete player, an explosive one-cut back, as we saw this weekend, and a player who can also factor into the receiving game as well, should they implement that into their offense here moving forward. So Walker, for me, far and away the best long-term running back asset for fantasy in Week 6 fantasy football, rostered in under half of leagues again on Yahoo Fantasy. Go pick him up, make him your top ad for the week, and get yourself a key player at a key position here. Moving into Raheem Mostert. Now, Raheem is the most heavily owned player on the list for today's episode. I had to toss him out there, so I don't want to hear anyone in the comment section below this week saying, hey, none of these players are available in leagues. They're rostered and have been drafted in all formats. Not true. I'm pulling these analytics from a very popular fantasy exchange. I actually compare Yahoo and ESPN rostership numbers, and Yahoo tends to have significantly higher rostership. So for Mostert, he's 1 point below 70%. I get that he's not going to be out there in all of your formats. Again, he is the highest owned player in any league format for this year currently. But the reason I want to toss him out here is because he's rostered in about 20% fewer of leagues compared to his backfield mate Chase Edmonds. Now, Chase Edmonds is rostered in 88% of Yahoo Fantasy Leagues right now, but Raheem Mostert is the running back to have. He is the running back to have on your fantasy team if you're going to roster a Miami Dolphins backfield mate. And Mostert has clearly asserted himself week after week here as a more dominant threat in this team's rushing attack. If we take a look at this backfield right now, he has 70% opportunity share for 122 yards and a touchdown this week. Again, asserting and establishing himself further as a player who weeks 1 through 4 saw his snap count percentage rise every single week, while Chase Edmonds declined every single week. So target Raheem Mostert in your leagues where he's available. I'd say anything 10-man or above would be worth a roster spot, maybe even an 8-man league with bye weeks coming up here, and now having a greater dependency and urgency on some of these depth pieces at key positions. Brian Robinson, again here above the 60% marker. I like to stay below this, but another critical ad for me. Didn't do much this past week. However, he did lead the team in carries and rushing yards. It was just 9 carries, though. He wasn't super efficient, but hey, the dude has been coming back from a significant injury, and we got to be patient with him. He is 100% worth a bench stash here for now, and until we wait to see how this Commanders offense shakes out, I'm giving him a place in my lineups in 10, 12-plus man league formats or leagues with a deeper bench space. So, again, I get that these aren't the two most available players in your leagues, but the players coming up here should be more widely available for you. Diving into Tyler Allgeier here next, below the 60% threshold. Had himself a very quiet game here in Week 5, and I wouldn't actually be surprised to see his rostership dip this week because I think people are going to overreact to the lack of production and overall points put up in your fantasy lineups for this week. Now, we had Allgeier as a sit candidate this week. I wasn't expecting the most flattering numbers in the world. And, the reality of the situation here is that this Atlanta backfield without Cordero Patterson is somewhat of a committee. We saw Avery Williams, we saw Caleb Huntley both factored in here doing various things in this lineup, but it was Allgeier leading the way with 13 rushing attempts on the ground and being the player that I think is the most valuable roster space taken up by a backfield member of this Falcons offense from now until Cordero is able to return from the injured reserve list designation. So Allgeier didn't have flashy numbers this week. Like I said, we had him as a sit. I didn't think it was going to be super awesome production against a tough Tampa front who bounced back after a tough week against Kansas City the game prior. However, with, again, bye weeks coming up here, starting to play a factor for the first time this season, this is something I'm looking at. Is running back depth is going to be definitely not something that's growing on trees here. Eno Benjamin rostered in 10% of leagues right now. This is a definite add for those of you who have James Conner in your lineups or simply are playing in 12 or more player leagues. This is a prevalent issue moving forward, is the health of James Conner and his availability. Ended up sustaining a rib/chest injury and not being able to factor in much late in this contest. So for Benjamin, he was the guy that went out there, had over 53 yards in the absence of Conner, and was putting up points, having usage, and being the predominant back on the field. Now we've got Darrell Williams there as well, but it looks as if Eno Benjamin is the next best option for this team. We kind of had this situation earlier in the season with James Conner's ankle injury, but it seems as if Benjamin's pulled away and separated himself as this team's number 2 running back for the Arizona Cardinals offense. So for me, again, if you're looking for a handcuff for James Conner, who continues to get nicked up here, Benjamin is a strong option again in those deeper formats. And I'll say it, I've said it 5 times at least already in today's video. Running back depth is a needed area of assessment on your teams. Bye weeks are going to be killer. It's like a shock, a slap in the face, dumping cold water all over you when you just woke up out of bed in the morning. It sucks. Running backs are few and far between. There's so much positional scarcity here from this point moving forward. So whenever you can stash an extra name on your bench spot and slate for your rosters, make sure to do so. Now into 2 Denver Broncos running backs. Mike Boone, for me, is a pretty interesting add here at a 36% rostership right now, again, on Yahoo Fantasy. He had 10 touches on Thursday Night Football for 85 scrimmage yards, so pretty good efficiency there, 8.5 yards per touch. That's combining his rushing and receiving involvement. And the one question I have for myself here is the role of Latavius Murray. So while we're talking about that, we'll segue into him here. His rostership is 19% right now. Basically, my suggestion for you here would be to grab one or the other. If you're in a league where Mike Boone got scooped up last week, target Murray if he's available. If both are gone, that really sucks. You probably got some savvy league mates, and it's going to be a struggle to add that depth regardless. But for me, the one wrench I could see Latavius Murray throwing in Mike Boone's availability, or not his availability, but his reliability for lineup production or the potential to do so, is the fact that Latavius is such a good power back in short yardage situations and in the goal line opportunities. So for me, I could see Murray being a touchdown vulture for not only Mike Boone, but Melvin Gordon as well. I could see him being utilized in 3rd down and 2, 3rd down and 3 type situations. Boone is a much more elusive back per se, someone who can get out in space and be a bit more of a slippery player, whereas Latavius Murray is all, thumping in between the tackles and looking to use his physicality and stature as a weapon against the defense. So I think both of these players have the potential to be valuable roster adds here. Again, it's personal preference. I just have this gut feeling and suspicion for Latavius Murray, who didn't play this past Thursday night due to such a quick turnaround. He played a London game Sunday morning against the Minnesota Vikings as a member of the New Orleans Saints. That's why he's in a Saints jersey here. There's literally not even practice photos available of him in a Broncos uniform yet. So it was a quick turnaround, 3.5 days, whatever you want to call it, from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, playing a game on Thursday, which again, he did not suit up for. I expect, though, after having a second week here of integration into this offensive system, he'll be someone that should be suiting up in uniform for Denver, and we'll see once he has understanding of the playbook what his role is. So maybe today Mike Boone's the better option. I would still target Murray, though, if Boone's scooped up in your league, because again, I do see a niche role for Latavius on this Broncos roster. Let's dive into some wide receivers now that I have as must-add players for this week. Starting off with a name who I absolutely cannot believe is rostered in under 47%, or excuse me, under 50% of leagues at 47%. That is a crime. Jakobi Meyers is a player who is almost a weekly high floor flex lineup player, an option for teams, and he flies so far under the radar because he doesn't do the flashy things that we see from other players, but he separates so well. He's such a good safety blanket for whatever the quarterback situation is in New England. We've seen him produce with Mac Jones. We've seen him have his games with Cam Newton dating back to, 2020. We've seen him have games with guys going back to, he played with the Tom Brady Patriots at times. Meyers has been around, he has been in this system, and he has been integrated into this New England Patriots regime here. And you've got a player who this past week, and if we look at the 3 games he's played in 2022, has 27 total targets in 3 games, averaging 9 targets per game. That's nearly double-digit opportunities per contest. And in 2 of his 3 games, he's had 95 or more yards receiving. So absolutely wild stuff here. He caught 7 of his 8 targets this week for 111 yards and a touchdown against Detroit with Bailey Zappi. So lots of stuff to take advantage of here with Jakobi Meyers. If you're playing in a PPR format, what are you doing? You need to add this player. He should be rostered in nearly 70%, if not more, formats. He is the wide receiver to own in New England, and I think that his rostership really dipped because of the fact that we didn't have that availability in week 4, and that was, something that players were panicking on a little bit, or maybe just didn't want to have the patience with for his injury. So go grab Meyers. The time is now to do so. Definitely a viable depth piece and someone that can really bail you out in a pinch here and be a dependable option. George Pickens here. This is so fun for me to talk about with George Pickens. If you guys watched the Bills game, there was really not much to see from the Pittsburgh side of the ball except for George Pickens. Actually, Deontay Johnson, let's give the man his respect. His production wasn't great this week. He had 13 opportunities, target share-wise. 9 targets went to Chase Claypool. But you've got 3 talented receivers here. Deontay nearly made some insane catches in this game. And in space just looks shifty as ever and like an extremely talented and gifted player. But for George Pickens, you could easily make a case for him by the end of this season being the alpha wide receiver. He is such a physically imposing and dominant athlete. It's totally ridiculous. There was one play. He was on the left. He was aligned to the left sideline. He was the perimeter receiver for Pittsburgh. They throw him the ball, they being Kenny Pickett. He goes up, snatches it, and then literally just holds the ball in the air like, hey, look what I found, and just you don't know how hard he was gripping the ball, but you just know the grip strength on that thing because there was another Bills defender. I was like, oh, he's gonna come peanut punch that thing out of there. That sucker wasn't coming out. George Pickens, he's got great hands. He's an absolute physical anomaly. There's these funny clips flying around on NFL meme pages where they say, some receivers separate themselves with shiftiness and raw footwork ability. Here's how George Pickens does it, and off the snap of the ball, he just clobbers the DB and sends him 5 yards back, flying off of his own 2 feet. So this is an absolute dude here. He has alpha wide receiver energy and mentality for this position room. Playing with Kenny Pickett, I do think opens up more opportunities for Pickens than we saw with other players like Mitchell Trubisky at the helm for this team, just because Kenny's willing to throw the ball downfield more, give George 50-50 opportunities, and I think that'll ultimately uncap his ceiling here a little bit. So I'm definitely holding him, because the upside is insanely large here. You could get a player that goes, well over 100 yards multiple times this season. In a terrible game script this week, we saw him go out there, catch 6 of 8 targets for 83 yards. Again, he was 3rd in targets in the wide receiver room, but he still got 8. Again, it was the worst of the worst game script scenarios. In terms of Pittsburgh getting blown out, it was actually favorable for the wide receiver room here. But go pick him up, 55% rostership. How about Alec Pierce here? I apologize. I forgot to toss Alec Pierce's rostership on the screen. It is 8% in Yahoo Fantasy, so very good availability here. He got 8 passes for 81 yards on 9 targets. That's an 88.8% catch rate on Thursday Night Football against Denver. And he was being such a weapon. He was being so impactful in that contest that Denver literally took Patrick Surtain, who they devoted to to shadow covering Michael Pittman for the majority of the contest, and slapped him on Alec Pierce here. And guess what he did? He continued to win contested catch after contested catch, making big play after big play. He ain't the flashiest player in the world. This isn't a guy that's going to, run a Devontae Adams level route off the line of scrimmage and just do these beautiful things. But what he was is an elite possession receiver in this one game. Now, he has a lot of work to do. He's still a rookie. He has raw athletic ability, though. He has to obviously progress and refine himself a lot as a player from a skillfulness perspective, but the tools are here. And I think that his emergence and potential breakout here the rest of this season really helps Michael Pittman and goes kind of hand in hand, because he really was their 1A and only passing option in the offense up until this point, because we've seen Pierce be dinged up with injuries and then just struggle to find a number 2 in this passing game. So I think this helps all parties here. I think having lighter coverage on each, because the defense has to respect both, is again a plus for this team overall. Maybe even helps lighten up the box a bit for Jonathan Taylor down the stretch of this season. So Alec Pierce here, again, 8% rostership. Again, I apologize for not including that in the graphic for today, but a potential bench stash with high ceiling potential throughout the course of this season. Devin Duvernay here, another 60+% rostered player. However, I did want to toss him out here. Had himself a nice game on Sunday Night Football, which I just consumed and absorbed, of course. Now, no Rashad Bateman. He's out with a foot injury. Kind of sucks. I had him as my must-start player, or one of the 5 receivers for this week, but he wasn't able to go. I loved how they used Devin Duvernay in this game. It was very dynamic. They got him the football on the ground and rushing opportunities out in space. They had him some passes as well. He's a big physical body, and he can get out there and make things happen when given requisite opportunities. Now, I would prioritize, the rookie receivers like your Alec Pierces, like your George Pickens, even Jakobi Meyers, of course, who I talked about and put him first for a reason in today's episode. I don't always line them up in a ranking sorted fashion here. I usually try to organize them by position, but for Duvernay, he's a talented player. He's a very capable playmaker, someone who can go vertical over the top and make big things happen. However, the nature of this offense, having Bateman and Andrews out there every week for the most part, you are assuming that you're going to have a situation where Duvernay is going to be on a low volume level of opportunity per game basis. So I'm prioritizing those other guys. Duvernay's a nice piece to have, though, so just tossing out that for food for thought here. Randall Cobb, another name I wanted to talk about now. Randall Cobb is definitely, in terms of the order of this video, towards the bottom of the list. This is a wide receiver by committee. Again, I apologize. I also didn't toss his rostership on there. It is 3% right now in Yahoo. Again, 3% rostership for Randall Cobb in fantasy football leagues on Yahoo Fantasy. But this is a wide receiver by committee approach. It is absolutely and 100% that for this Packers team. The reason I think that we saw Randall Cobb come out here, have himself a higher snap count percentage and level of opportunity in this game, is because Christian Watson left with a hamstring injury. Now, Christian Watson isn't someone that was being super worked in terms of his overall opportunity share in this offense, but in the run game, they love to have him out there as a blocker. He's a very fast, speedy athlete that's able to be used in mismatched situations to create advantages for Green Bay offensively, again, even if the ball doesn't end up in his hands. And so Cobb ends up getting in there more because it's him, it's Dobbs, it's Lazard, or Dobbs, excuse me, and they just really needed Cobb to step up. And at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers trusts him. So he got 13 targets, led the team with 7 receptions for 99 yards. But in 3 games this season, he's played under 50% of the snaps. Week 1, he played just north of 60%. So it's not like you're getting a weekly lock to be a flex level player. Is a capable safety blanket. Sometimes health can be a concern for Randall. Sometimes, of course, that leads to availability concerns and problems. And again, he's not going to be on the field a ton here, so you're going to have to be patient, and definitely is a start in spots type of a player, not someone that you're going to want to deploy out there on a regular basis. So at least keep that in mind for those of you, again, 3% rostership, 14+ man leagues or 12-man leagues with a lot of flex positions and a deep bench to keep in mind for consideration here. Josh Reynolds diving back one more time into the wide receiver position for week 6 waiver wire ads. 31% rostership for Reynolds here. He has had 10 or more points in half PPR scoring in each game this season, week 2 and beyond. So week 1 was his quietest outing of the season. It's no coincidence here. Just like we saw with our friend TJ Hawkinson, the second Amon-Ra St. Brown and DJ Chark got injured, these guys are stepping up and popping off and making plays. And Reynolds is a really nice, talented player. Now, he's not a lead receiver for a team and shouldn't be someone that's considered to be that over the course of a season. But with DJ Chark out here with an ankle injury, with Amon-Ra St. Brown coming back from his ankle injury but not being 100% and having himself one of his quieter days of the season, Josh Reynolds comes in here once again, steps up, and produces nice levels of production for this team, which is something that warrants him as a flex consideration player in those deeper formats. So lots of receivers as potential adds this week. If DJ Chark comes back healthy and Amon-Ra St. Brown as he gets healthier, keep an eye on his practice routine and overall availability throughout the week. But Reynolds could be a viable play in that sense. Last up here, moving into some miscellaneous categories, you've got Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. Now, Taysom was out there doing it all. 4 total touchdowns on the day. He was eating, and that's why I put the picture up of him eating that good old Thanksgiving turkey leg there. Taysom absolutely balled out. I mean, I sent out a joking tweet. Alvin Kamara had almost 200 yards from scrimmage in this game, and I was kind of like, hey, you know, someone from the future, why didn't Alvin Kamara put up top 12 numbers at the running back position this season? And it was like me answering them, and it was like, of course, you've got injury issues playing a factor, you've got inconsistencies on the ground for this team, and then the fact that Taysom Hill comes in and steals his red zone opportunities. Now, he did throw a touchdown pass. He ultimately did have 2 very, very long runs, and he was just the Swiss Army knife that he always is. Now, his production is incredibly hard to predict and guess here. I've got some best ball shares of him where I don't really have to worry about making that starting lineup decision, and when he goes completely nuts like this, I just reap the rewards of that. But this is someone, again, in those deeper formats, worth just having around. He's going to give you quarterback plays. He's going to be involved in the run game. Like, he's really never a pass-catching threat, which is what makes him such a unique tight end asset. I love to see where he ranks amongst fantasy tight ends after this enormous day. But for Taysom Hill, he does a lot of things, and he does a lot of things well. He was out there blocking. He made a critical block for Alvin Kamara to pick up a first down this week. He does all kinds of stuff out there. So keep your eye on him. Consider him. If tight end's a position of desperation for you, and you just really need someone, you're just super desperate at this position. I'm pretty sure I made up the word there. If you're in a position of desperation at the tight end position, go out, give Taysom Hill a consideration here, and see what he can do for yourself and your team here. So that'll cap it off. We went a bit above 10, which is what we normally keep today's waiver wires episode for. However, we like to toss extra names out there. We had some guys step up to the plate, produce, and ultimately give us some reason to be excited heading here into Week 6 fantasy football. So one more time, my name's Gavin, you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our lessons learned video, which is also coming out today, and I'll see you in that episode again. We're pushing towards 5K subscribers. It means a ton to me if you click that subscribe button and join our community here at SFS, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.